What's up, BookTube? It's Leah Cooper, and today I'm bringing you 2 Readathon TBRs. I hope all of you are safe. I hope as many of you who are able to work from home are doing so, and self-quarantining and social distancing and everything like that. My state, I live in Washington, finally declared a stay-home order yesterday, forcing retail establishments, I work in retail, to shut down at least for the next 2 weeks. So I finally heard from my boss that we are going on paid administrative leave for at least until the 31st. Not entirely sure what the situation will be the second week of the stay home order, but I have a week. Hooray. I'm really relieved because up until this point, they were still requiring us to let customers into the store, and I did not like it. I did not like it at all. I work at a bookstore, and as much as I love books, books are not a necessary product, and putting us all at risk really sucked. So, hooray. Yesterday, I was feeling really, really anxious because I was waiting for the governor was scheduled to make an announcement late in the evening, and so I had all of the morning to just be like sitting around anxious, like checking social media and stuff like that. And I watched 2 people. I watched Julie and I watched Sam do their OWLS TBRs, and it got me really inspired. So today I'm bringing you my OWLS TBR as well as my TBR for #classics SFF RAT. So it's the Women's Classic SFF Readathon. And I've never done the OWLS, but because, to be frank, I've not been in a reading slump the last 2 years, but I haven't been reading at the volume I read in 2017. So readathons really didn't interest me, especially really complicated readathons. And the OWLS is a very complicated readathon, so it always kind of scared me. But it sounded like a lot of fun. I think this is the perfect opportunity to do it, since I will have hopefully the first week in April off, as well as the last week in March, to prep, like get all the other things read that I need to get finished before the readathon starts. And I just felt really inspired. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my OWLS TBR today, as well as my classic SFF Readathon TBR. So this is another readathon happening April 1st through the 12th, and it's hosted by Maya, and it's to read. It is all about reading classic SFF written by women, and we're defining classic here as anything published before 2000, just to highlight the so many amazing women SFF authors who have not gotten necessarily the recognition they deserve. And so I do have books to meet the one challenge for that readathon as well. So I'll go ahead and start with the classic SFF readathon, since it only takes place in the first half of April and OWLS goes the whole month. So the one challenge for the classic SFF readathon is to read 3 books published in consecutive decades, and you can pick whichever 3 consecutive decades you want to do. So I'm going to do 60s, 70s, and 80s, and this is all pulling from books that I own. So the first one I'm going to choose from, this was published in 1968 by Anne McCaffrey, is Dragonflight, and this is the first Pern novel. My copy is incredibly beat up, but I bought it for probably $1 at my bookstore before I worked there years ago, and I have a handful of Pern novels on my shelf that I really would like to read. Wasn't sure if I was going to get to them this year, but perfect opportunity to do it right now. So I got that. Then the next one, this book was published in 1974 by Patricia A. McKillop, is The Forgotten Beasts of Eld. I hauled this about a month or 2 ago, and someone else who is going to be doing, a couple of people who are doing this readathon have also mentioned this book, and I think it looks like a pretty quick read. It is like 330 pages, but my edition has pretty large margins and pretty large font, so I think it'll be a pretty speedy read. And I have not read McKillop, so yeah, she's definitely one of those authors I want to read. It's kind of like Anne McCaffrey. Anne McCaffrey is another one of those classic authors I have desperately been wanting to read. So 60s, 70s, and then the last book I'm going to read was published in 1985 by James Tiptree Jr., and that is Brightness Falls from the Air. And I guess I should talk about what these books are about. So Dragon Riders of Pern is classic mix of fantasy and a little bit of sci-fi, but you don't get the sci-fi, I don't think, until much later in the series. But it is about an alien planet where there are these wares, which are kind of like feudal communities, and there are dragons, and people ride dragons, and I think they soul bond to the dragon specifically. They might even be able to like talk to the dragons, and there's different classifications of dragons, and they ride in dragon flights because on this planet there's this thing called thread that tears across the planet, and I think it consumes any organic matter, if I remember correctly. And the dragons are the only, like, dragon fire is the only thing that can destroy thread. So they ride in these flights to combat thread to keep the rest of the community safe. And it's like a feudal-ish community, but there's like a lot of history regarding this world. There's a lot of Pern AUs and fan fiction. That's kind of why I know so much about Pern, but I've never actually read Pern. I think I'll like it though. And then The Forgotten Beasts of Eld, which is apparently not a kid's book, even though this edition of the book is clearly trying to sell it to teens or something. But it is about a woman who grew up on a mountain with only fantastic creatures, and someone leaves a baby on her doorstep. She's not a big fan of humans, but I think she is going to have a romance with the dude who left the baby on her doorstep. That's what it sounds like. And then Brightness Falls from the Air is a sci-fi novel that honestly I don't know anything about, and the back is super vague. 16 humans come together on Damien, a distant world where once dreams were stolen and atrocities took place. They have gathered to view the last rising of a man-made Nova, the testament of a war none can forget. Soon time will warp and masks will fall. No idea what it's about. I've never read James Tiptree Jr. I know there is controversy around James Tiptree Jr. I fully recognize that and acknowledge it. There previously was an award called the James Tiptree Jr. Award for that awarded books for their astounding work in like pushing the boundaries of gender in SFF, and they have renamed the award, rightly so, I think. So James Tiptree Jr. is controversial because her husband or partner, I can't remember if they were married, was disabled, and she was his primary caregiver, and there's some question over whether or not she committed a murder-suicide or a double suicide. She claimed in her letter that she took his life and then her own life and agreed upon double suicide. But there is some conflicting evidence from people who knew them and people who spoke to her partner that it might have been a caregiver murder suicide. And I understand that, like, that's very... She's not a figure to just be held up without being critical and recognizing that how often that happens too, like partner violence towards disabled partners and stuff like that. However, Tiptree is a really interesting figure in 20th century science fiction because Tiptree is a pseudonym, and no one knew she was a woman for a really long time. In fact, I can't remember who it was, but a very prominent SFF author used to argue that, of course, women can't write as well as men, and actually used James Tiptree Jr. as an example of no woman could ever write this book. And then it was like, well, actually, James Tiptree Jr. is a woman. So, like... I'm not necessarily going to go after reading all of her works because I think that is potentially problematic, but I do want to read one of her works. I also bought this before I found out about the whole history of her surrounding her death. So, I am still going to read this, but I am going to I'm not doing that while also ignoring what she might have done and the implications of that. And I'm open to discussing that more. Okay. So, sorry. That was kind of a long spiel. That was only tangentially related. But that is going to be my TBR for the classic SFF Readathon. Let's move on to my OWLS. So, I wanted to combine as many BookTube SFF Awards reading, because I'm still reading for the BookTube SFF Awards in April. In fact, I'm going to be doing the bulk of the BookTube SFF Awards in April. So I did want to try to combine some OWL books with books I was already planning to read. And luckily, I was able to do that. Now, let's see if my laptop will let me look at this page. Okay. So for the OWLs, for all the details, you can watch the announcement video, but basically if you don't know what they are, which is probably no one because I think I'm the last person to jump on this readathon train, the OWLs are from Harry Potter, and they are the junior level tests you kind of take. Like, they're the first level of advanced testing you take later in your Hogwarts education, and depending on how you do in your OWLs, it qualifies you to take basically AP tests, I think, in your second to last in your last years in Hogwarts, and then you take your newts, which are like your AP tests. I think that's kind of the equivalency. And depending on how you do your AP tests determines kind of like where you can go for career education sort of stuff, because you like need to do so well in certain OWLs and newts to like be set up for careers. So for this readathon, the creator of this readathon has put so much fucking work into this. I am astounded. She's created this document, which you can find a link to on the announcement video, and it's like a wizarding career guide, and she has a bunch of different careers and descriptions, and then also breaks down what OWLs you need to take for this career, and then also what newts you need to take. So there's a couple that I could do, but I decided to go ahead and I didn't like the OWLs and newts selection for journalists and writers, especially since it really felt like it skewed towards journalists, not writers. And I'm not interested in journalism. So I decided to go with Trader of Magical Tomes, which is basically a magical bookseller, because I'm literally a bookseller in real life. I know, really, really creative there. So that means I need to take 4 OWLs. I need to do, and the OWL tests coordinate with your book prompts for choosing your books. The other thing you can do is also pick which house you belong to, and then as you finish books, there's a spreadsheet where you can put in how many pages you read and what house you're in, and there's a little inter-house competition based on pages read. So I am a Ravenclaw. I've tested multiple times, and I'm a Ravenclaw. Like, yes, very much so. And then for my OWLs, I'm going to need to take Ancient Runes, Charms, History of Magic, and Transfiguration. So pull this next page up with the prompts so I can actually tell you what those prompts are, what those subject matters are. Okay, so for Ancient Runes, the prompt is Heart Rune, which is heart on the cover or in the title. This was so difficult, and I went ahead and had to pick a book I was not planning to read for the next couple of months because it wasn't nominated in the BookTube SFF Awards this year. I really thought it was going to be. But that is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. So this is heart on a cover. The object that the character is holding on the cover is called a ship heart. And it's the only thing off my TBR that I could find that qualified for this prompt. But I think that's a pretty good prompt. I was planning on reading this is the 3rd book in the something of the ancestors, history of the ancestors, something, Book of the Ancestors. I thought it was going to be nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards because the other 2 books happened, but it wasn't. So I wasn't planning on reading it anytime soon, but it's a good one. Okay, then the second test I have to take is Charms, which the prompt is Lumos Maxima, pick a book with a white cover. So that one's great. I have The Test by Sylvain Nouvelle, and I'm reading this for the BookTube SFF Awards. It's also short, which is also great. So yeah, easy pick right there. This is Britain, the not too distant future. I think it's someone taking like a citizenship test maybe in like the not too distant future. Not really sure. Okay, then after that, my next test is History of Magic. So the prompt for this is a book it's witch hunts. So a book featuring witches or wizards. For that, I'm going to do another BookTube SFF Awards book, and that is Sorcery of Thorns. Sorry for the shiny cover. It's a library book by Margaret Rogerson. So I don't know if they're technically witches, but there are sorcerers in this book. So I'm going to count that as good enough because, again, I have to read this for the YA category of the BookTube SFF Awards. And that, in my opinion, is good. I think this might have like a magical library. Yeah, so it's about a foundling raised in a magical library. An act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire. I hope it's good. People seem to be enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to that. And then the fourth test I have to take is Transfiguration, and this one was really hard. Like, obviously I have a history of reading books. Well, I have a history of writing books with werewolves, but I don't necessarily I don't really own a whole lot of books with werewolves in them. Like, the test here, the prompt here is Animagus Lecture, which is a book or series that includes shapeshifting. So, shapeshifting usually refers to people changing their shapes, but I could not find anything on my shelves that had shapeshifting in it. Maybe some ebooks. I had a couple of ebooks I think have werewolves in them, but I'm just not interested in reading them at the moment. And however, I went up on Goodreads and I read the synopsis for Sal and Gabi Break the Universe, and which I have to read for the middle grade category of the BookTube SFF Awards. And there was something in it about Sal being able to change the shape of stuff. Let me pull it up. I think this one's a stretch, but I don't know what else to pick for this. Like, I spent a lot of time yesterday combing my shelves and combing my Goodreads TBR trying to find something. Okay, so this is the paragraph of the summary. Sal prides himself on being an excellent magician, but for the sleight of hand, he relied on a talent no one would guess, except maybe Gabi. When Gabi learns that he's capable of conjuring things much bigger than a chicken, including his dead mother, and she takes it all in stride, Sal knows that she is someone he can work with. There's only one slight problem. Their manipulation of time and space could put the entire universe at risk. So, that paragraph indicates that Sal can conjure stuff. So he's manipulating the form of something, even if it's air or energy or thought or matter or dreams or whatever, or time. It means he is transfiguring stuff into other stuff. So, like, I know it's not shape-shifting, but it's the best I can do. And I also feel like it might be a little bit more in line with the transfiguration, which, like, in the books is just them, like, transfiguring dumb shit into other dumb shit, like pets into goblets. You know? Okay, so that is my OWLS TBR. Technically, I do have a book about dragons, but which fulfills the prompt for like Dragon Tamer, but you can only take the Dragon Tamer extra credit course if you're also in like the Magozoologist course. So you know, maybe I can get in for free, right? And then there was another prompt for Care of Magical Creatures. The prompt is hippogriffs have a creature with a beak on the cover, and there is a hawk on the cover of this book. So this does count for the Care of Magical Creatures test. Another thing I'm going to be reading in April is To Be Taught If Fortunate for the BookTube SFF Awards, and this would count for the potions exam because it is a book under 150 pages. So I think that's all the books that also correspond to tests, which I don't think is a bad thing. I will keep track of all the tests I technically qualify, just in case I want to change my career and take a different combination of OWLS in August, I guess. So yeah, I think that's a really good TBR. Sorry this video has been so long, but it's complicated, and I'm going to be reading a lot of books next month. Let me know if you're participating in either of these readathons. If either of them sound interesting, be sure to check them out down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care, stay safe, stay home if you can at all. If you can. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.